So we are back with another episode of Life in Law, and today we have our special guest, Jay from Florida, formerly from Chicago. Thank you so much for joining us, Jay.
Hey, good morning. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Well, it's a beautiful, breezy day in Florida. Fortunately, I'm like only really 1 mile from the ocean, so I always get the ocean breeze here. Uh, Trees break it up perfectly, and you just get the breeze, not the wind. So it's great here.
Awesome. So do you want to just briefly tell a little bit about yourself for our listeners, just to start off?
Oh boy, that's a briefly. It's a huge history of gang stalking from Chicago all the way to Florida.
And
I've
so
never.
do you
Go ahead.
maybe did you want to start off by saying kind of what happened in your specific case?
But everything here in Florida was going fine. I was married with a kid when I moved here, but the area that I live in is rated number 1 for having the most amount of alcoholics in Florida per capita. So it's not an easy place to get along because with alcohol comes selective thinking and personal opinions and whatnot. So I guess the short version of that is no one can mind their own business because they've all got their lips drunken babbling. And you got the street drugs and the pharmaceuticals too. So it's like a wall to wall institution here.
And which county, which county in Florida is this?
IRC,
IRC,
yeah, Indian River,
Indian River County, Florida.
yeah.
Okay. And so do you want to maybe talk a little bit about what was your main problem that you had dealing with corruption regarding in the criminal courts?
Well, I moved here with no driver's license because I really didn't care to get it back because to me it was just a thing that was, hey, pull me over. Look, my name's on the license plates. So when I got married, I had license plates of my ex-wife on every vehicle that we had. So I was never getting pulled over again because she, at the time, straight A student, college graduate. Um, so I never really got looked at until she started calling the police when she clearly had no uh, dedication to a lifelong commitment. She just, wanted to have a kid, didn't want to do it out of wedlock because her family, they'll maybe shake a finger at her. And I don't even think that her family knows that we're divorced. She's probably kept that from her aunts and uncles because her parents are like career car thieves. So they would just be like, your daughter's divorced, and I'm quite sure it's your fault, when in fact it is. Um, but all at the same time, though, my ex wife really just wanted a divorce because she wanted to take everything. And the first 2 times it wasn't working, and things had settled down from there as far as like home uh, non cohesiveness, I believe would probably be a good term. And so we refinanced our house, and I had a commercial property that we made an agreement. I'll fix up the house, we'll refinance it. You have a job as a school teacher that can pay the bills until we maximized our profit on the house, and then we'll go build out the commercial property with a refi. Well, we refi the house for the third time, divorce filing with orders of protection that were falsified, that the court never verified anything. They just went by what the mouthful of lies she had to say, even though I'm at court going, well, I'd like to get a continuance to bring witnesses in. And they would never wanted to hear anything except for, we've got a woman here that's willing to lie and we'll go by that. And when in fact, a lot of the stuff in court that she was speaking of was transparent. You could tell, that she's not being truthful there. and it's her third time wanting a divorce. What's going on there?
So question, so did she file for divorce 3 different times? Or was
Yeah,
it just,
the first two weren't going to work out financially for her, but once we refinanced the house, it was easy for her to take all the money and say I'm a violent person and put me out of the house.
and do you guys have children?
Yeah, one son that he's a co-victim of mine with alienation by proxy through the courts, ex-wife and her parents, as well as I'd have to throw in a few of her friends, the surrounding area. It's amazing how people here just can't mind their own business, and it's ruled on as legit.
So when you went to court for the divorce and things started to kind of get deeper into the case, did you feel like the main problem that was an issue up for debate was about money?
Yeah, as far as the ex-wife was concerned, and I had a commercial property at the time that was paid for as well. So there was quite a bit of equity, to be had there. Uh, and it seems like everybody just had their hand out.
Did you have lawyers involved when you were going through the process?
Now, I've always gone to court and just played stupid, but I've always, not always, but for a lot of years, have looked into law studies and whatnot. But if I walk into court and know what I'm talking about, they're not going to be committing their crimes in open court. So I've always just let them do exactly what their theory is. They do whatever they want to. When you go to my courthouse, sit out in the hallway for a little while and you'll catch a rumor that they're above the law. Well, they don't, I guess, get what that interpretation is. When someone is saying that they're above the law, they're confessing to being a criminal. Otherwise, why would they need or want to be above the law?
Right. So so I'm guessing that you and your ex-wife never had a prenup, correct?
Now,
And did you
she was very
feel,
sincere in the beginning, and I thought she was in it to win it.
and did you feel like this was wealth that you guys built during the marriage, or it was more like you had a lot going into the marriage, or did you think that this was something you built together?
Well, I definitely was the breadwinner at the time, not according to taxes, though, because she's head of household ever since. I mean, she had a decent job as what was actually, activity director at a retirement home. But, if you look at what she paid scholastically for that and what her paycheck was, she should have just used that tuition money and invested in something that would pay off, because when she was doing that, I don't know, she wasn't really making much more above, I think, probably double minimum wage. So how was that even worth it to go to school for 4 years? You know?
Right. So you were making more money and she was making a minimal amount, but you were still supportive of her career choices during the marriage?
Yeah, I never knocked anything that she did. I really kind of didn't mind that if she just stayed home, because you know, with a job that doesn't have a giant paycheck, it's really kind of not worth it to go. Wear and tear on a car, the time, the preoccupied time that it takes, just all the expenses that goes along with a job. You're probably going home from your little paycheck with a small percentage of it after expenses. So it's really not worth it.
Right, absolutely. Especially when they take all the taxes out up front and then on top of it, then everything else, all the other expenses, sometimes it makes more sense to stay home, especially if you have children, because it's cheaper.
Right. Once she was pregnant, she started going to court reporting school. and got, I think it was 280 words a minute. And if you passed the test the first day because you pre-studied, you're a court reporter. The record was, or average was like 6 to 9 months to graduate because there's no term on it. You know, you just have to do, I think it was 280 words a minute on the machine. Um, and she got up to like 250 words and quit, which I really kind of wasn't happy about because I'm paying all the bills. I don't even have a driver's license. I'm working as a contractor and making like three, five, $7,000 a week, depending on how much effort I put into it. So I
Yeah.
didn't really stayed home.
So now, do you feel that these issues going on with the courts with corruption are happening on a global level, or do you think that it's limited to the US, or what are your thoughts about that?
I've had a couple import businesses, and so I've looked a lot of different places because it was successful till the trade tower crisis hit. Um, and so I've looked at a lot of different places and met a lot of people all over the world that are on my several different social medias that like cover East Asia, China, um, just all over the place. Really, there's like Line App and WeChat and what is the other ones? I don't know, irrelevant, I guess. But yeah, I know people all over the world. And just a few weeks ago, a female that I was, discussing import businesses before because I found her because she was a exporter, and I, questioned her, hey, any ideas on some way that I can import things from your country and make money here? Well, I didn't talk, and we discussed it, and I don't know, other things came up, and I went a different direction, and but I didn't. She's a nice person, so I didn't like delete her or nothing, and that was some kind of like 7 years ago. Well, a few months ago, she messages me and says, hey, some guy in the military came and got my daughter pregnant, as well as 15 other girls in my village, which they have in the Philippines. Not everyone lives in a city. They still have their little, actually cool, primitive way of life that they don't like, but I'd rather live like that than out in society. Your big deal is, where could I get a couple fish and some vegetables for dinner for the day? The bills are easily handled because their properties are handed down from generation to generation. But yeah, what came up in the conversation, which was kind of shocking, was, do you think that this guy in the military that got these 16 minors pregnant is going to be a deadbeat dad? I'm like, where did you hear that term from? Like, well, it's everywhere. Everybody talks about deadbeat dad. A lot of people in the places like Philippines and different areas that are desirable vacation destinations. Men go there and they don't care if they get someone pregnant and leave. So there's a lot of single moms all over the place. So they complain about deadbeat dad quite a bit, I'd have to say.
Yeah, and I think a lot of Americans will go to places like Thailand and some of these other places in Southeast Asia where you'll see like prostitution is really common, especially with minors and things like that. And a lot of times people will leave children there and things like that. And it's like, it's a lot harder to hold somebody accountable as a father if they're in another country, if you can't find them, if you don't know who they are. But then, like you said, it's sad because all these children are then growing up with deadbeat dads or absent dads. And so when you say deadbeat dad, what does that mean to you as a father? When you look at somebody and say that person,
alienation by proxy, anyone who says deadbeat dad is a child abuser and they should automatically be put in prison.
So you think do you feel that that term is misused to try to twist things? And can you explain a little more about that?
It's not to try and twist things. It's definitely alienation by proxy, especially when that term comes across, especially a minor child. because they're easily influenced. And then once you've got, the father gets 2 weeks, 2 weekends out of the month, and mom usually gets the majority. Sometimes dad has custody, because mom is completely at fault with some criminal record, drug abuse thing or whatever. But generally, it's automatic. Mom's getting custody. Excuse me. Because if we don't give her everything, there might not be a divorce. So I don't know. I'm not a he-man woman haters thing. Don't get me wrong. I mean, that just is the way things are operating these days, and pretty much throughout the history of divorces. I mean, they should look at who's the cohesive parent and who's not the cohesive parent, and go by that. Really, not some monetary thing. My ex-wife was asked in open court, how is his relationship with his son? And she's like, oh, they've never had any problems, because I've always had some type of a shop going on, and he was interested in things, just like kids do, erector sets, Legos, da da da. Except where I was giving him real hands-on construction opportunity at 4 years old. When I thought he could handle power tools, and he did quite well with it. But
So
I don't know. They don't weigh things out, I guess is the point. It's just whoever walks in the door with a mouthful of lies wins.
yeah, and I think it's interesting that you said that usually moms will get custody, and that you felt that usually fathers will only get custody if the mom is a druggie or does some bad stuff, and I think that is one of the more common misconceptions, especially now in 2025, where, like, for example, I lost both of my children. I never abused my kids. I never neglected my kids. And what caused me to lose my children stemmed from me reporting sexual abuse of my minor daughter, who was 3 years old at the time, is now 6. So me reporting the sexual abuse happening at dad's was what caused the court to then immediately transfer custody from me to dad. So now I was put on supervised visits. I was labeled as being dangerous and a problem for reporting the abuse. And then the abuser got custody. And so it sounds crazy. It sounds like this doesn't make sense. How could this be? But I can give you the names of at least 30 other people in Connecticut alone who had the same thing happen to them. And I think that what people need to realize is it's not so much of the dad always gets custody unless the mom's off, or, the woman always gets the house and always gets the assets, because I've seen and interviewed many people where the husband had a lot of money, connections, things like that, and then completely screwed over the wife in the divorce, where she got nothing and was left homeless and penniless. And so I think it really comes down to how can they exploit the situation as much as possible? How can they extort as much money out of these people and get as much money from federal funding as possible? And so when they see things like you, and they see a mother who is like loves her children so clearly and is willing to do anything to fight for her children, they look at it as like dollar signs in their eyes, like, oh, we know this mom is going to spend hundreds of thousands on lawyers, and she'll jump through hoops, and she'll do everything and keep this going. And sometimes even keeping the case open alone is enough for them to continue collecting these federal funds through Title 4D, Title 4E. And like mentioned, like, exactly. And like, you mentioned like alienation by proxy. And I think it goes both ways. It's not even just deadbeat dad, deadbeat mom. If a child hears somebody say, your other parent is a deadbeat, like my ex says to my daughter, oh, mommy's a deadbeat because she isn't paying me my child support. Imagine being 5 years old and hearing that. Like, that is going to resonate in your mind, so that the child is going to the more you keep hearing this person's deadbeat, this person's deadbeat, the more you start to believe it and internalize it. And that is, like you said, abuse, child abuse.
Yeah. Yeah. Even though my ex-wife had said we have a great relationship, father and son, they gave me supervised visitation. How does that look to the kid?
Yeah.
Especially
for what?
My ex-wife filed 3 orders of protection for no reason that were never investigated. Nothing conclusive. She doesn't have a scratch on her. It's the words that are coming out of her mouth that is the effective part. And back to, there might not be a divorce unless they give the woman everything. I didn't make it seem to sound like that. And in fact, I'd like to offer your situation an apology, which is possibly the only person that you're going to get an apology from in your situation. Because I see you as, you look great. You present yourself well. I don't know why they keep pointing the gun at you. Especially I've watched a lot of your different podcasts and videos and stuff. And to me, they're pretty clear and evident that there's something wrong with your courthouse.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's like, this is why I feel like it's important for people to share these stories, because I think what you're describing is the classic, the divorce, the wife gets everything, the husband loses everything. Like, that's what people classically think of when they think of divorce. And they think like, oh, it's, the wife always gets the kids, the wife always gets the house. But that's not always true. I think that people need to realize that they look at, like, especially when allegations of abuse. And it's interesting because you said like your wife just went in there, made allegations, got orders of protection, and was able to the court just went along with it. But versus like someone like me who goes and asks for order of protection with proof, with evidence, and the judge refuses to grant it. And then I go to they won't make arrest. And then I go to the custody court and they won't do anything. And I'm showing like proof of abuse. And then they just block me from testifying, block me from showing evidence. So as soon as they start breaking the law to obstruct justice, that's when you know that we're not operating in a fair judiciary where you can go in there and get a fair hearing and have due process and equal protection. Like, we are operating in a system where you walk into that courtroom, the decision is already made before you open your mouth. And that's what it is in 90% of these situations. And I think, you mentioned businesses and in houses and commercial properties. And a lot of times, I don't know about Florida, but I know in most states, when a divorce happens, they want your financial information. They want all your tax returns and assets and everything to be submitted to each other. And so when the courts see that there's houses and properties and money and bank accounts and pensions, they're looking at that as like a shark that sees blood in the water. And so I think that it makes people a target. And so do you agree that having, assets such as houses and things like that were free and clear, do you think that made you a target in the situation?
Right. As well as I have another comment towards the beginning of your explanation that you had there. When they change, modify, or ignore, that's called ex post facto. And that is where a judge is conducting his courtroom in a criminal aspect. Ex post facto, they just act like that doesn't even exist. They act like the Constitution doesn't exist either. Which is unknowingly, unless you object and call them out on something that you know of as being different, they just, keep tooting their horn and keep going. But yeah, it does have a big effect, especially when my ex-wife filed for order of protection the 3rd time. I had to go to batterers intervention classes where they preach to you about it takes 2 to tango. You're the man. You should know better. And there's no class for the woman. So why are you saying it takes 2 to tango in this argument, physical fight, whatever, and the man should know better, but there's no class for women, which is gender discrimination.
Right. Just like in Connecticut, they have access and visitation grants. If fathers want to see their kids, the fathers can use these access and visitation grants. And there's all these resources for fathers and fatherhood rights and everything pro-father, but there's nothing for mothers. So it's like, I think that the gender discrimination definitely used both ways as a weapon. And I think they pick and choose how to apply it to each specific case. And do you feel that the attorney that your ex-wife had was fair, or do you think there was some corruption involved with her attorney possibly?
Well, if I go to the courthouse, well, we can't give you legal advice. You should consult with an attorney. But they seem to be a little gender biased because they'll help out every woman there, tell them how to fill out their paperwork, da 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 da. No matter who's at fault, without any proof. They don't think proof is a thing.
So you feel that in your experience that you've been treated with hostility compared to how women are treated in the court?
Yeah, most definitely. And the alienation by proxy just kept escalating and escalating. They gave me supervised visitation at this place called Value Visit. Well, my son is 12 years old at the time, and Value Visit, you walk in the door and they have all these like very low tables for like preschoolers. And the activities there are, put the square peg in the square hole. And then there's like another table right there with little tiny teacups. So we could have had a tea party. My son's 12. We could have had a tea party. We could have been putting square pegs in square holes. I mean, there was nothing there for either one of us to some kind of entertain each other. For me, it didn't really have any effect as to whether or not I wanted to be there or not. I mean, I wanted to be there, obviously, because I showed up. But the atmosphere there just points a 12-year-old in the direction of, why am I here? I don't want to be here. This is like preschooler. I'm not a preschooler. So it's just putting negative thoughts into the child's head regarding whoever they're at Value Visit with, depending on age. I mean, if it's some 4-year-old, 3-year-old, okay, yeah, sure, go have a tea party, but it just doesn't work like that. They should have different arenas for different age categories for the kids. Like I should have been meeting at like a rec center that's supervised where we could go shoot basketball or something. I don't know. I mean, I'm not some basketball guy, but if that's my visit for the weekend, that's what I'm going to do,
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Everything seems to indoctrinate the deadbeat dad thing, the alienation by proxy. Do you ever look at, on social media, you can find deadbeat dad pages, and you can also find, what is that? Oh, damn, I forget the other one. Where they're continually blaming the other person when the blamer is at fault. Oh, I don't know. It'll come to me. We'll get back to that one maybe.
Yeah. So did you continue with the supervised visits, or did you eventually stop doing them?
She stopped doing it and the courts did nothing.
So she just stopped bringing your son?
Yeah. Yeah, because, after one of the visits, I explained to the woman that worked there that I reported a drug dealer in my neighborhood, and my son hangs out with the drug dealer's kids, and I don't really want him hanging around there. And actually, it wasn't after one of the visits. I knew that's where my son was, not at his visit. And I don't really want them hanging around there. So she used that for an excuse, because the woman at the Value Visits, she got CPS on it because my ex-wife was a school teacher. In my opinion, they couldn't really do anything CPS involved. One, because my son is 10, he's not a desirable kid to adopt out, as they call it, but it's really selling, it's really soliciting the kids to dangerous situations. You hear one story after the next about how some kid went from a situation at home to a worse situation. So there's, again, no investigation, no nothing really. But I don't know. The whole thing is just really a wall to wall mess. It needs to just be completely reconstructed from the ground up.
Yeah, and so I definitely agree with what you were saying before with how the environment that you described for the supervised visit seems like not something that even, 10, 11, 12-year-old would want to do, especially it's almost like a prison. It's like going and visiting somebody in jail, white walls.
And there's cops sitting there supervising the whole thing.
Exactly. So you can't even be yourself. And it's like, when I first lost my daughter, Angelina, the judge tried to put me on supervised visits, but she said, mother's access will be as determined by the father in the presence of a third party designated by the father. So there was no schedule. There was no supervised visit center. There was no designated supervisor. If and when he decides to let me have a visit, he's going to decide how, when, what, where, why, and who the supervisor was. So that was terrible. And the time that he did allow me visits, he would just say, you and the supervisor can come get Angelina, go on the visit, and come back. So it was nice because we get to do whatever we want. We can go out for dinner, we can go to see a show, go to a movies, whatever, go to the park, go to the beach. Like, we weren't trapped in one of these facilities. And like, I think that was good because like it gave us some sense of normalcy and bonding and, being able to bring her to the house where she could play with her toys and things like that, or like go to our favorite restaurant. You can't do that when you're in these 1 hour visit at a facility.
Yeah, right.
And then it's like, you can't enjoy your time with your kid. It's like, feels forced. It feels like you don't even want to do it.
Right. And there should be different degrees of supervised visitation. If you've been like beating your child or something, yeah, okay, I could see why those two cops are in the room. If you have no real issues with your child, except for maybe a few arguments or something, okay, well, I could see why there could be a cop on the other side of the door for the staff to push a button and come in and rectify a situation. But if it's nothing but a friendly relationship, the supervised visit should be more along the lines of, okay, well, who's a neutral family member that the kids and the father or mother, who's ever got the supervised visiting, who's a neutral family member that both parties have gotten along with, and send that neutral family member with to supervise the visit. That leaves it a family friendly atmosphere. When you've got cops breathing down your neck at a tea party with a 12-year-old, not only him, but I felt uncomfortable too, And
Absolutely.
I did actually mention that to the judge presiding over the case. And he said, okay, well, I'll look into that and we'll see about doing something about it. See about doing something about it? Well, that's like the smoker that's been trying to quit. They ain't doing it.
Exactly. It's all just like empty promises and just
Yeah.
false hope to bring you along. And I think also like getting back to the funding issue is like, if you look at follow the money, every single state is abusing the federal funding incentives. And so like when they automatically put you on supervised visits and say, go to, what was the name of that place?
Value visit.
Value
So
visit. What
that's
kind of
actually-
name is that? What is it? Bargain visit?
It's subliminal. It's a value visit that when the 12-year-old gets there, he finds no value in it.
Yeah.
It's subliminal.
It's like crazy that they would even name it that, but this place is probably getting funding from the federal government, and so it's probably like an incentive for the court to order it, because usually they have to find abuse or neglect or some kind of risk before putting you on supervised visits. But now they're just slapping it on like it's nothing because they get money from it. And so
Yeah,
I want to
obviously
ask
they
you.
are.
No, yeah, definitely. Did you ever, I know you mentioned like, when you go to the visits, there's police sometimes and things like that. Did you ever,
Every time.
wow. Did you ever
And not some
go and
friendly
arrest?
looking cop either. I mean, they got what looks like is possibly leaving after that and getting on the SWAT team. I mean, what's wrong with a mild mannered looking male or female, not some, you know, someone that looks like they're going to leave and rough somebody up in a second. So you got to hurry up.
Absolutely. And it's intimidating. And, since this family court stuff started, I've been arrested 3 times already. And they're keep trying to put more and more bogus warrants and fake arrests and everything out of retaliation. And so have you experienced retaliatory arrests at all in your experience with this?
Oh yeah, I got a really, really fancy fabricated criminal record. Without maybe going over the whole thing, one time I was leaving bowling, and I got I stopped at 7-Eleven. It's right on the way home. And one time I walked in the door there, and here's duct tape. It's the first thing that you see when you walk in the door at 7-Eleven. And I asked the clerk, I'm like, hey, do you think that's a good idea with all the crimes that happen at convenience stores like this to have duct tape the first thing that you see? Well, he's a black guy. He got offended by that. Like, no one's gonna duct tape him, And so him and this other clerk, they plotted to pick a conflict with me, which in my opinion was actually orchestrated by the police, because I had been arrested for no reason except for my ex-wife was drunk. She woke up at 3 a.m. And I was at the house. We both fell asleep watching a movie. She wakes up like a Chinese fire drill. You got to go. You got to go. You got to go. My mom's coming at 8 o'clock. I'm like, well, why don't you go? You're the one paranoid. I'm not. So she called the police at the same time that I'm getting ready to leave, go where I'm staying. The police come and just completely flip me around the driveway like a rag doll, where I was waiting to explain myself, period. There was no altercation, no violent, no nothing. She just calls, my husband's at my house. There's no order of protection. There's no nothing. So this cop completely assaults me, and he's so dumb that, they crushed my foot in the door. And the cop in his report says he wouldn't move his foot. Well, translation, he wouldn't move his foot, so I crushed it with the door. How is that serving? And I called him out with different things throughout that arrest that just made him completely look ridiculous, so that they would drop the case. By pointing out, well, look at what it says in the report, that I wouldn't move my foot out of the door, when in fact he's shoving me in the car after flipping me around in the driveway with his 300 pounds of policehood macho ego, and then jamming me in a car like he's putting a sardine in the can, not taking it out. I can't even get in there fast enough before he's smashing and breaking my foot in the door, and caused me a torn rotator cuff at the same time.
Wow.
But yeah, that was all seemingly some kind of attached to the divorce thing, because it's in the same district. It's a black and white thing. And I don't know. I just made them look ridiculous, and they don't like that, so they'll target you for being a victim, victimize the victim.
So how many times altogether since the divorce have you been arrested?
10.
10 times?
10, yes, and some very serious stuff as well. At one time, attempted rape and a hostage thing. I put an ad on Craigslist. I was doing some construction on a condominium that I got the job from Coldwell Banker. I'm not going to ruin that by a female coming by. That I put an ad on Craigslist for someone to come by and clean up all my dust and put in a garden. Well, this girl, she comes by, oh, hey, you're getting ready to paint. I'm a painter, this, that. She told me everything that I wanted to hear or needed to hear, so I would hire her. And then she comes to the job. She's chain smoking. She's texting a conspiracy, how I have her kept in the bedroom and I won't let her out. But she's got like 20 cigarettes in the back they had a little fire pit, not a bonfire thing, but a little decorative garden fire thing. and she keeps throwing all of her cigarette butts in there. Well, if I got her locked in the room, how is 20 of her cigarette butts in the fire thing? And if I got her locked in the room, why didn't I take her phone away? You know, I mean, the whole thing just doesn't add up or make sense. But they, yeah, arrested me because she's typing a conspiracy since 9:30 in the morning, and the police don't show up until 2:30 in the afternoon. Well, all right, I see your concern. You know, so obviously they knew that that was all. They knew they were fabricating the whole thing, but her texting and compared to what was going on there didn't prove a crime, didn't prove intent, didn't prove anything. And all of a sudden, her husband comes walking in the door, um, and she's pale white because she just had uteral cancer surgery twice with chemo and radiation. And I'm a holistic study, so I'm not especially going to violate someone with a health condition, you know. In fact, I was talking to her about how, you know, she could help herself in between her text messaging and going outside and chain smoking, because I told her there's no smoking in the house. And then she's text messaging all the time. So I was like, hey, you know, listen, if you want to take a break at like 10:30 or something, and I know you have kids, so I'm not going to say don't talk to your kids. I know they need some attention. So, you know, go ahead and text them. But if they have a problem, have them call, not text. That way you have a difference in why they're inquiring to you. And then at lunchtime and then at 2:30, you know, do whatever, but I'm not going to pay you for those 15, 20 minutes. Take 30 minutes if you want. But I'm not going to pay you to stand there smoking and texting. And then we also went to Burger King and I left her sitting alone in the restaurant. And they're completely ignoring that as well. So while she's at Burger King, they're going with the story about how I got her locked in the room, even though she's at Burger King by herself, because I went to the washroom and it's kind of little chatty inside Burger King and there's background noise. So I stayed in the washroom because the homeowner had called coincidentally. So I handled the call inside the washroom. But she was inside the restaurant for 20 minutes with a coloring thing in front of her. You know how they have those kids menus that and hand them crayons. All she had to do was flip that over, make a sign, please, I need your help. I'm being kidnapped. And so she's inside the restaurant for 20 minutes. That's not on the report that they tried to ignore. And that's just another. So she's pale white from the chemotherapy radiation. Her husband is named Anderson. He's a black guy. And the 7-Eleven incident was a Anderson police officer. So on opinion, she had gotten busted with her meds, selling them or something. And I don't really know the whole deal there. But they probably made a deal with her that, you know, if you find a better bus than yourself, we'll take him and let you go. And I don't know. I never really got into that whole thing. I mean, what I'm saying right at that point is speculation, but the cousin and the cop look like they're directly related. And that whole, they keep having to drop the cases because I keep finding ways to pull the sheets out from underneath them, except for one where, you know, they had told me, like the 7-Eleven thing, they had told me that, well, you know, it looks like this is coming to an end here. It's probably just a better idea if you just don't contest anything. Well, he walks into court and I was like, okay, well, whatever. You know, I figure he's going to go and tell them that, well, there's no proof that he did anything. You know, there's video footage that the clerks are following him around the store. How is he the perpetrator, not the victim? And then the clerks actually chased me down the street because I only rode a bicycle there because it's a block and a half away. And the clerk is on camera chasing me down the street for reasons that I don't know at the time. And we wound up in a physical altercation where he was losing, so we ran away. And they omitted the the 7-Eleven camera that's obviously there, the public defender, pretender, whatever you want to call him, said that the state lost the videotape. And well, I had already called 7-Eleven Corporation and told them, hey, I think I got pickpocketed at your store, because then I'm a victim. So they'll share the video with me, which is what they did. And so I had my own copy. And they had said, well, we can't submit the same piece of evidence twice. Oh, okay, whatever. The state's attorney loses my evidence that was subpoenaed, and now you don't want a copy of that? Whatever. The public pretender already saw the video, so why isn't he a witness? Even though the stuff was lost, which I figured that's what he was going to go in there and do, but instead he goes in and pleads. Mr. Murphy would like to enter a no contest plea, which is put to a lot of people as, that doesn't mean you're pleading guilty. That just means you don't want to contest the case. Well, the judge takes that as a guilty plea. Next thing you know, you're being sentenced, and no matter what you want to object with, the judge, Mr. Murphy, you have a lawyer here. He'll speak in your behalf. They keep just wanting to shut you up, when in fact, don't shut up. Just keep objecting, because that's what they can't do nothing about that. You have the right to freedom of speech. That's why a lot of times.
Part of the problem is what you have a lawyer. When you have a lawyer representing you, people don't realize that your lawyer is speaking on your behalf. You don't get to then go and talk like you're pro se. And so I think that a lot of people have a hard time doing pro se because they feel like having that lawyer is like a security blanket for them. But then, like you say, you go with the lawyer, the judge won't talk to you. The lawyer a lot of times will not speak up and say the things you want to say. So sometimes I feel like it's better not to have the lawyer.
Yeah, exactly. And two, a lot of people get it in their head that, well, I'm innocent. What do I need a lawyer for? And then, so they go in there without even doing any type of research whatsoever and want to hit the situation head on, thinking that, well, it's going to be found out that I'm not the guilty party here. So yeah, no lawyer is a thing. Pro se is a thing. But knowing what you're talking about and doing your homework on the situation is also a thing. You can't just walk in there thinking that it's all just going to go away because I'm innocent.
Absolutely,
There's no
especially
victim
when
of
there's
the
corruption. Yeah,
Yeah.
especially when you're not dealing with a fair playing ground. And,
Yeah.
it seems like they're always so quick to try to prosecute and throw fake charges and retaliatory, cases and things like that. But when it comes to people trying to prosecute these officials who are violating federal laws like 18 USC 241, 242, obstruction of justice, violation of deprivation of rights under color of law. These are real federal crimes with real consequences. But when it comes to try to, you can't go to the police and report the police themselves. So have you had any experience trying to criminally prosecute any of these different entities that have been involved?
Florida's a difficult place. I'm sure that you're probably familiar with the 1A auditor situation. That's like nationwide. There's different
What is that?
auditors. Well, there's people that have, in fact, I actually kind of did a tally on it. On a guesstimate, there's like 6.5 million civilians hardcore studying law in USA. Not all of them go out and do police auditing, but what they do is, they'll go find a situation and they'll listen to police scanners and actually go to a location where they've heard something on the scanner and go film it and, coach the person that's pulled over or whatever. They evaluate the situation and determine whether the person that the police are interviewing is a victim or a perpetrator. And if it's a perpetrator situation, a lot of times they'll just film it and be done with it, walk away. But if they determine that the person being interviewed for a suspected crime is the victim, they'll step in and say things like, hey, you don't have to let them search your car. Hey, you don't have to say anything. You could plead the fifth. Um, because by answering questions, they're building a case against you that looks to me as if it's fabricated or whatever. So I think you're better off, not saying nothing. And a lot of times they'll arrest the 1A auditor, First Amendment auditor. It's referred to as that because you have a First Amendment right to film the police. They've been called frauditors also by like news agencies, which I think is kind of funny because what's the definition of a frauditor? One who audits fraud. I mean, that's a shot in the foot if you ask me, but they're intending on insulting the auditors. And they're going places. There's apps that you can get that if you have a cop approaching you, one click and you're on the phone with a random attorney that will represent you because you have a contract with them and the app 24 hours a day, which that's actually a pretty cool service.
Wow.
But so auditors actually are doing a better service, in my opinion, than the police. I've actually watched quite a bit of it, and they've prevented situations from people like going to jail for little or no reason. I mean, you're getting pulled over for a traffic stop. Why does the cop want to search your car? Because you've got a taillight out. Because they're fishing for a crime, And if you're act up at all, oh, well, then they're going to get a drug dog, which they can alert on their own by different commands or whatever, get the dog to signal. But why it's pretty obvious that the drug dog thing is a fabricated deal because the dog will alert and then the police officer goes and puts the dog back in the car and then searches the whole car. Well, why didn't they have the dog sniff out the exact location of the drug?
Yeah, exactly. I remember one time I was like, I must have been 15 years old. I had no license and my dad had, I don't know if you've ever heard of a Geo Prism, but it's like the biggest piece of shit car you could ever buy. Like they don't even make them anymore.
Oh, yeah, I know what it is. I thought you were prism as in refracting light.
No, it was like the Geo Prism, and then they changed it to the Chevy Prism, and then they like don't make them anymore. But anyway, so he had like this like old ass Prism, and I was 15. I had this car, and I was driving around all the time. And I was dating this guy who was like a couple years older, and he had a license, but he didn't have a car. So usually when I was with him, he would do all the driving and use that car. But one night, I was by myself. I had dropped off some friends, and it must have been like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I get pulled over because this car had like no tail lights, like the door was smashed, like it was falling apart. But like I didn't realize like
overlooking thing.
Yeah, and I didn't realize like having no tail lights was grounds to be pulled over. And so like these cops are just like sitting there, and they see me pulling up to the light in this like sketchy little car at like 3 a.m, right near like the worst area you could possibly be in. So they immediately pull up next to me and roll their window down. And there's 2 cops in the same car, and they look at me and roll down their window. And he's like, looks at me, he goes, "Do you have a license?" That's the first thing he says. And I, in my head, I knew I didn't have a license. So I was like, I can't lie, because if I say I have one, they're going to ask to see it. So I was like, no, I don't. So the cop immediately pulls over. They come out, and they're trying to like say to me, "Oh, what are you doing in this type of neighborhood at this time of night? What are you trying to go buy drugs? This and that. What is someone like you doing here?" And
Yeah, Terry versus Ohio, they can assume anything they want.
Yeah, and he's like, they kept like berating me, and I was like, and I was like so young, but I had talked to people who tried to say things about what to do if you're in a stop and things like that. So I said, they said, "Oh, do you have anything in the car that, we should know about, drugs or this or that?" I said, "No, but I don't consent to any searches either." And the cop was like, "Oh, really? You want to be smart? Okay, we're going to bring the canine now. Let's see how smart you are once you bring the canine to search your whole entire car," and da-da-da-da. And I'm just like so scared. And it was an empty threat. They never brought a canine. They just kept going on and on. They asked to see my ID. I showed them my school ID. They're like, oh, you looked a lot better in this picture than you do now. You look like you haven't been sleeping, this and that. You need to take care of yourself. And then after all the threats of bringing the dog, they didn't bring the dog. Then they must have got another call because they were like, all right, we'll let you go as long as you promise to drive straight home and don't come back to this type of neighborhood in this time of night ever again. And they literally let me go. They didn't tow the car. They just said, you can go and drive away without a license. And I was so scared. I was terrified. But my point is that, like, they will try to use that whole dog thing as a threat to intimidate you if you try to stand on your rights. And anytime that you stand on your rights, they retaliate and get mad and try to, like, use threats to manipulate the situation.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. You know, the Supreme Court ruled that, you know, police can interview someone and lie to them throughout the interview, which, you know, I can kind of agree with that as long as it's like fibbing, not harmful lies. But they've taken that to another level where they're lying on the street, which, okay, I mean, say whatever you got to get the information that you want.
Exactly. Like one time they said,
lie on the report and lie in court because it became habitual.
exactly. One time I was arrested and the cops were like, oh, we want you to come down and talk to us. And I went to go talk to them. I agreed to willingly talk to them. And then they say, oh, we have you on video committing this crime. We have the video. We have the video. They didn't have that was a lie. They had no video. And so then I admitted to it because they said they had the video and then they used that to arrest me. So it's like these cops, they're so dirty sometimes. And you have to know these tricks because like you said, they'll lie to you. They'll say anything to get you to confess. And it's like people don't realize you have that right to say absolutely nothing, demand a lawyer, and just say, I plead the fifth and don't speak anymore. And as much as they try to kick, scream, and threaten, they have to comply with that.
Right. But, you know, back to your getting pulled over and not getting a ticket and leaving you drive away. Technically, that's what they had to do because you don't have a license, which is a contract with the state. So they've got no business doing anything. You don't have a license to write a ticket to.
Yeah, and I had no ID.
So
I was like 15 or 16 and they were like, oh, we can give you a ticket that makes it so you could not get your license until you're 18 and we can stop you from ever getting your license in the future and all these things. And then it's like, next thing you know, it's like, all right, you're free to go. It's like, shouldn't they have towed the car, given me a ticket, driven me home, called my parents? Like, you know, it was like 4 a.m. So I definitely think that a lot of times the cops are not following protocol. They're doing whatever they want, and you know,
or policy or statutes or
exactly.
case summaries or anything. Really. I mean, they're willy-nilly.
Yeah, they'll turn off their body cameras. Like I'll request body camera footage, and it magically just ends in the middle of it, and they just can't explain why they didn't have the camera on. And there's so many things. And I know you mentioned something. You referred to it as the black robe syndrome, which I think goes back into tying into the courts. Can you talk a little bit about what does that mean to you and explain it for the listeners?
Well, you know, it's not really any kind of a mystery that, you know, you could know everything that you need to know about a court case and go into court and think what's going to happen is going to happen, but it never works out that way because these judges and state's attorneys have worked together for so long, making it an unfair trial, that they have gotten away with so much stuff that it's become an indoctrination, really, to them. In fact, if you ask me, the way law study and policing study has gone to different levels, you know, it's not really law or police study. It's an indoctrination on an idealism that makes them think that what they're doing is justifiable and correct. And even though, you know, do your little bit of research and it's just like, God, this judge is a complete felony criminal and he's attacking me with some misdemeanor thing. And they just go ignore that and continue doing what they do, you know? Back to the deadbeat dad thing and the pages that I was trying to think of. Narcissism. Those two pages, they read pretty much exactly the same. Narcissist and deadbeat dad pages, they all have like the same thing going on. In fact, I'm on a couple of those pages just for entertainment. I saw one float by earlier, and it was like a picture of a supposed lawyer, and with a caption that says, "Were you married to a significant other? You're entitled to compensation for that."
Really?
Whatever. Yeah.
Wow. So
Anyways,
have you,
let's get
have
back
you,
to where we were.
yeah, I was going to say, have you ever filed any judicial complaints or FBI complaints or DOJ on any of these judges or officials who violated the law?
I've complained to Tallahassee. They thought it was actually funny and told me that I should write a book, which I've already have a lot of notations on. It's called To the Letter of the Law, and then with allegedly all in capital letters going on a diagonal across it. And it's all, nothing's alleged. It's all based on facts, really.
And is this a book that you're planning to publish soon?
Yeah, I've never really gone public online with a lot of different things, nor have I shown different legal skills that I have knowledge on to the police or in court or anything. I just continually have let them, with their own theory, that they do whatever they want to and they're above the law. Okay, well, let's see you do it. I'm waiting. So I just always went along and played stupid because otherwise they're not going to be committing these crimes in front of me, or rights violations or whatever. They'll stay on their toes a little bit better. And even though that probably would have meant the gang stalking would have stopped as soon as it started 20 years ago.
So can you talk a little bit more about your experience with the gang stalking and what that looked like for you?
Yeah, 10 arrests and no proof I've ever done anything because I've never done anything. The latest one was because of Hurricane Milton. I had a lot of ravishing with my home, and I applied for FEMA because I live in an area that's never going to flood. So I didn't really think to have insurance there because I don't know. I mean, when was the last time I had damage from a storm in that area? Never. And I've owned that property for 20 years, so I didn't bother getting insurance. But they, train distracted me a second there.
About the insurance?
Oh, yeah. So FEMA puts me in a hotel. And, I have nothing to hide. I'm there by myself. And so I just left the curtain open because if you close the curtain, it's like midnight in the room and you got to turn some lights on, which is a bulb is generating heat, da, da, da. I just left the curtain open. And this woman that was a couple doors down, she is literally window shopping on my room because I have like different suits and food cabinet stuff on the desk that you could see as you're walking by the window. And she specifically, "Hey, could I get one of those soups?" And I kind of know the routine at a hotel. I've been to a lot of them. You check in and you need to go to like a grocery store or a restaurant, get something to snack on so that you're not completely relying on hotel food or fast food or something. So I went along with it a couple times. I mean, I'm not a selfish person. And then one day she's all, "Hey, give me one of those soups and a soda." Well, it went from, "Hey, can I have," to now, "Gimme." So I don't know. I felt like that was like a red line. And she's knocking and yelling that through the door. So I go over to the door. It's like very early in the morning. I go over to the door and open it up a little bit. And I'm like, "Pardon, dear, but I think you need to go shopping. This is day 3 of me just completely feeding and quenching your thirst. And oh, she was never so insulted in her entire life. And I said it exactly like that, politely, not anything derogatory whatsoever. Well, I had my phone on a selfie stick because I'll film the police without them knowing. If I see something, I'll go in a bush and not stick my camera in their face because, again, they're not going to commit their crimes if you're standing right there and they know they're on a camera. And so she knows because she's 2 doors down from me that I have a phone on a selfie stick. So later that day, I go outside because inside the room, the signal's not very good. And I had to send a couple text messages, make a quick phone call, and there's cameras everywhere. And she goes, after I go back to the room, she hears my door go back in, and she goes running around the hotel. Anyone that's outside, she's like, he's got a gun, he's got a gun. And so 4 people call the police, unknowing why, just because someone said hearsay. And she herself called the police. So she filed a false report, which is a crime in Florida because she knowingly called the police and said that there's a guy outside with a gun. And it took the police like over 30 minutes to show up. And the reason for that, in my opinion, is because of how Homeland Security has grown and grown. If there's a situation at a hotel that's a serious situation, the police have the legal ability that they think is a right. They think everything is a right, but it's a legal ability, not a right, to bypass the hotel security cameras, which they, once on scene, they gave every indication that they already knew what was going on, but still proceeded to pound on my door with a pistol, which was surprising, but I knew what it was. I mean, who's pounding on the door with some metal object that what the landscaper is out there with his shovel? I knew right away it was a cop beating on the door with a gun. So I had a sweater on. It was a little cool out. I took the sweater off and just put on a form-fit tank top, and I had already jeans on that you could see that I've got no weapons. I knew if I walked out the door with the selfie stick in hand that it's a good opportunity for the police to say, oh, I thought it was a gun, so we shot him. And I'm in my local jurisdiction, and they know me. And they knew who it was in the room because they have the legal ability to check status on the resident, check the video cameras. And while I was outside doing my texting and making the phone call, it's dusk, but there's parking lot lights on, so you can see plain as day. And I'm operating the phone as a phone. I'm not flipping it around like it's a gun. I mean, what am I doing? What does it look like I'm doing? I'm outside romancing my gun on camera at the hotel. Oh boy, I can't wait to get you back to the room. Whatever, Terry versus Ohio again. But yeah, they pounded on the door, and I knew to answer, hands exposed, open the door widely, and they just bum rushed into my room without saying nothing, pretty much, except for get outside right now, put your hands in the air. They cuffed me, which technically in Florida, that's considered as an arrest. I was held over 20 minutes, which is beyond the time that they're allowed, only for me to keep mentioning, you need to go and look at the video cameras. I'm here by myself. I've been here by myself. How could there be any kind of a crime be committed or being committed here? How could there be any crime? I'm by myself. You need to look at the cameras. Look at the cameras. And so after mentioning that a few times, one of the sergeants actually grew a brain, thinking that, oh well, if he wants us to look at the cameras, he's obviously knows about the cameras. Yeah, they're everywhere. Everybody knows about them, except for they're wanting to ignore them. And I keep asking, what am I being charged with? We'll let you know that in a minute, because they don't know. They haven't fabricated the charge yet. So obviously they're just going to make something up, because otherwise they would have been, well, you were stalking that girl, or you just smacked somebody, or you just stole something, or something. We're investigating a petty theft or a grand theft auto or whatever. They just kept saying that we'll let you know in a minute because we didn't lie about that part yet. And, with their formation outside, um, at nighttime, I did close the blind because, it's nighttime. Uh, by the time I got back, it was almost completely dark. But I don't want to be like laying on the bed and having the curtain open like I'm suggesting something or I don't know, whatever. I had the curtain closed. But, so with them not knowing what's on the other side of the door or the curtain, and upon opening the door, there's like 6 or 7 cops right outside the door and the window. I mean, they can't see in, but I can crack that a little bit and see what's going on outside, and they don't know the difference. So they think that there's a guy with a gun inside, supposedly, but they know different. They gave every indication. So why are they standing right outside the window? Because the guy with the gun can shoot you through the window. Why are you doing that? Because you know that there's no gun, right? I mean, what happened to officer safety? That went out the window because the guy in the room with the gun, we know is a selfie stick because we already looked at the cameras because it took them 30 minutes to show up. And the police department is like I don't know, I'd say 6 to 8 minute ride away. And there's cops everywhere in this town. They have enough police force that they could handle a call in little or no time. And gave other indications as well. I mean, like the cop pounding on the door with a gun and not saying anything. I mean, why isn't she, female cop, knocking on the door and saying something like Domino's Pizza? Who doesn't want to answer the door to the pizza guy, and then go running around and hide behind her car? She's leaving herself completely wide open for me to just crack the door and shoot her. And she's by the hinge side, not by the side where there's like a brick wall where she could hide behind the brick wall, but I could still shoot her through the window or shoot her through the door. Because it's a metal door, but a 9mm will go through an engine block, so the door is nothing compared to the engine block. So there's several different things without pointing every one of them out that they knew it's a guy outside with a selfie stick. So at that point, I mean, it's against the law to file a false report in Florida. Why didn't they arrest the woman? And why didn't they question me? Is it possible that this woman that cried wolf knew that you had a selfie stick in your hand? Yes, it is very possible because she's continually outside because she had the same problem as everyone at the hotel. The phone signal doesn't work very well. So if it's a nice day outside, go make your calls outside. There's like little or no background noise. You got a lot better success. So she saw everyone that came and went out of that hotel. She knew, she even asked me one time, why do I have a selfie stick? And thought it was funny because like I'm taking glamour shots of myself or whatever, that's things girls do, not generally men. But yeah, they wound up leaving me go because I a few times said, you need to go check the video camera. There's no crime here whatsoever. And that's why they finally just grew a brain. Oh, he's not doing nothing. The sergeant goes. And then next thing you know, they asked me if they could go in my room. And they asked me if I had anything that looked like it could have been a gun. That was the first time that they had revealed what they were investigating. I was like, well, I was just outside on a cell phone with a selfie stick from a lot of feet away that could maybe look like it was a gun, but not according to that camera and not according to anyone that's on the sidewalk, especially those 2 women sitting there on the corner that just got notified that I just walked past. And as soon as I passed them, this cry wolf woman went and told them that there's a guy with a gun. And so they called the police, not knowing that it was me that just walked past them and said, hi, ladies, how's your evening going or something? I don't know. Just acknowledge so that they see I'm a friendly person. There's no reason for an alarm, just making a Nice comment on my way by. But yeah, they called the police when they completely saw me from head to toe. From like 3 feet away, they're sitting on the curb side of the sidewalk, and I'm walking down the sidewalk, and I'd say the sidewalk is 4 feet wide. They saw me from head to toe. But they wound up calling the police because she cried wolf. So the police don't interview anyone and just wind up taking off. And they asked me if I had anything that looked like it could have been a gun. And do I mind if they go in my room and go collect the phone with the selfie stick? And it's sitting on the bed. So they go into the room and pick up the phone and come right back out, which is another indication that they know it's a cell phone with a selfie stick. Because what if, coincidentally, I have a cell phone with a selfie stick and a gun? Why didn't you search the whole room? I let you go in. Because you know you're there fabricating a aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Is really what happened there. The police are the criminals there. And it's, I think, 7 or 8 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. The woman filed a false report that initiated the cry wolf. The other people are, I mean, innocent bystanders because they were told someone's with a gun, so they're innocent, victim of circumstances. So, I mean, they're questionable who made this call or who told you there's someone with a gun. Did you know differently before you called the police? They could have questioned them quite a bit. And they've got me cuffed and pinned up against the car. Already emptied out my pockets. For the first time in my life, I was read my rights because I've called them out in court on that several times. I was never even read my rights, or there was never an arrest announced. So technically, I'm not even under arrest. You're hearing a imaginary case because of that. Because until you are read your rights and an arrest is announced, you're not under arrest. And you have the right to defend yourself if someone touches you, period. Some of these auditors, the police will be pushing them back and they know, don't touch me. And they'll just smack their hand out of the way. Don't touch me or you're getting sued. And the police know at that point that they're not supposed to be touching people. So they.
Well, I'm pretty sure that they can still arrest you without reading your rights. It's not about arresting you. It's about having you in a custodial interrogation. So if you're in custody and they start interrogating you, they need to read you your rights prior to that. And if they don't, you can strike the entire interview, all the statements that you made. And if they base the arrest based on your statements in that custodial interrogation without reading your rights, then they have nothing to arrest you for. And the whole case is supposed to be thrown out. But like in my experience, that's what happened to me. In 2023, I was arrested after a custodial interrogation without them reading me my rights. And then they refused to drop the charges. Like I'll bring up the Brady violations. I bring up the due process, how there's no probable cause, how there's like factual things that prove my innocence. And it's been tomorrow, it will be 2 years since the day I was arrested. And the state has a statute called the Speedy Trial Statute, which says that if you ask for a speedy trial, the state has 1 year for you to trial from the day of your arrest. So if I was arrested October 18th, 2023, they had until October 18th, 2024 to bring me to trial. If you file your motion for a speedy trial after that, they have 30 days to do it. And if they don't do it within 30 days, your case is required to be dismissed with prejudice. Now I have two open cases. One of them hit the 2-year anniversary in May. The other one hits the 2-year anniversary tomorrow. So when it tells you that they have 1 year plus 30 days to bring you to trial or your case is going to be dismissed with prejudice, that's a lie, because my case is going on 3 years and 2 years for the second one. And imagine if you're in jail. If you're in jail, it's 9 months. They have 9 months to bring you to speedy trial. But there's people that have been sitting in jail in pre-trial detention for 3, 4, 5 years with no trial scheduled. And it's like, if I was in jail, it would be the same thing. If I'm out of jail and I can't get a trial, what makes me think that going in jail, I'm going to get a trial? They'll just torture you and make you try to kill yourself. And so I think that there is so much wrongdoing happening in the criminal justice systems all across the country, in the family court systems, in the entire judiciary. And it's really concerning. And a lot of people are this. And I think, you have an interesting perspective because you've seen the criminal side as well as the order of protections side and the, regular divorce family court side. And so what are your thoughts of, do you see any of this improving? Do you see anything changing, or what are your thoughts of, where we go from here?
Well, at the rate that they're conducting themselves, they're a house of cards. It always collapses. That's why I was bringing up previous in our conversation about the 1A auditors. On opinion, they're going to cause the collapse because they keep going and collecting evidence and videos of different things. And for the most part, a lot of these cases that get run through court, their convictions are based on there is no video. So the cop's word is gospel, even though you could see plain as day it's a lie. So yeah, I don't know. I think that there is a lot of change going to come. But you know what's going to happen? I'll tell you exactly what's going to happen, just like what happens with everything else. Some politician is going to take the credit for it, not, like social media complaining about vaccines. Now, RFK, oh, well, yeah, let's take the credit for that. But it's social media complaining about autism and people having different issues that stem from a vaccine. So yeah, some politician will come along like he's the superhero. Vote for me.
Right. Exactly. And I think that you're right, because social media is, I think, huge. And especially in the last couple of years, I think that more and more people are getting more comfortable posting. And a lot of people are scared of retaliation and stuff. But I think that when you put yourself out there publicly and share your story publicly, it makes it harder for these public officials to attack and retaliate and do these crimes, because when they know that you have hundreds or thousands or millions of people watching, it's a lot harder to get away with it.
Right. They need cases where whatever the cop says is gospel. Back to fair and speedy trial. That in Florida, I guess it's a little different than Connecticut. Here, if you're in jail, they have 160 days or 3 continuances to bring you to trial. If you're out on the street, 180 days or 3 continuances to bring you to trial. But you could pay a lawyer to represent your case, and say he wants $5,000, and you go, I'll give you $10,000. I just want this done in one day. And then on the first day, the judge will say something like, waive speedy, which is code for, are you going to waive the Fair and Speedy Trials Act? So I need to know how far we can milk this, because I want to schedule this for, I don't know, a few years from now, beyond the Fair and Speedy Trials Act. And most every lawyer, every time I've ever seen them get asked if you're willing to waive speedy, which, lawyers will do because they don't want to get blackballed or blacklisted, whatever you want to refer to it as. From what I understand, that takes the Fair and Speedy Trials Act 3 continuance 160 days or 180 days to 4 years.
Wow. And people don't even realize they waive those rights. Like you said, they'll just write that in their waive speedy trial simply because you said yes to a continuance. Or they'll say, if you don't explicitly say, I want the speedy trial, they're assuming you waived it. So I think that it's important that people learn their rights before they even step foot in that courtroom, so that they're not accidentally waiving or, allowing something that they didn't really want to allow.
Right. Well, that's actually not even an opinion technically binding, because it wasn't disclosed to the plaintiff. Full disclosure, I was going over a real estate contract the other day, and they have full disclosure. They want you to initial this, initial that, initial this, initial that. There's 30 different places to initial on one real estate contract, and a few places for you to sign. They courts just think we don't need to disclose anything because we're flying by the seat of our pants as it is. The more we disclose, the less money we make. So yeah, I don't know. On opinion, like I said, it's not full disclosure. So how is it binding? You know, I had a coincidentally when I was a kid, I found a turtle that was like this big, the size of the end of my pinky, and that turtle could run like crazy. I named him Speedy,
Aw.
and weirdly enough, um, if you talked to the turtle, he would do this. So he's waving. Wave Speedy might have been what I thought they were talking about. Speedy's waving. How did you know that?
How do you know Speedy?
Yeah.
That's funny.
But yeah, they're flying by the seat of them pants, sitting on a house of cards. How they expect to proceed is irrecognizable to me. To me, I can knock their house of cards out by myself. My courthouse, if you're 20 minutes late for court, they arrest you. And there's no such thing as being late for court. And they do that pretty much in every courtroom. I was at a friend of mine got accused of liquidating his mom's bank account that he was a joint signer on the account. So he could take all the money that he wants. He's a joint signer. And he did put money in there. So he did kind of conduct himself as far as the account was concerned. He wasn't rich. Mom was rich. The brother calls up, and not to get completely off topic, I'll try and make this the shortest version as possible. He winds up in front of a family court situation, and I needed to get him some paperwork. So I went to the courtroom. So because they have a history of losing things if I drop it off at the jail. So I went to the courtroom to see if I could pass it to the bailiff and get it to him, and we're done. And a case that was heard prior to mine was a child custody thing with 3 kids in the balance. And the judge tells her, okay, be here. I forget the date, 9 o'clock in the morning. If you're late, you're going to lose your kids. I believe it's Massey or Macy, I may be pronouncing it wrong, versus Ryan. There's no such thing as being late for court. It's missed court date, not court time. And the oral arguments on it are, we don't know if it's a female, with a baby. What if the baby has suddenly needs a diaper change, or overcrowded elevator and they live on the 15th floor, or for some reason there's an accident, heavy traffic. They gave every real legitimate excuse why a person can be there after 9 o'clock. So it actually goes by policy of the courthouse. If they say we're open from 9 till 4:30, well, it's a good idea to show up no later really than 4 o'clock. But they'll arrest you at 20 after 9. That seems to be like their deadline. 20 minutes late? Are you kidding? I could see 4:15 because there's not enough time to hear the case. But the fact of the matter is it's missed court date, not court time. So it's not hard to really start kicking these houses of cards apart just by going and sitting in a courtroom and being a witness. Not only going out and filming the police.
Right. So would you encourage other parents from Florida or specifically in your county to reach out to you, to connect with you, maybe to support each other and share information and things like that?
I've actually joined different pages, wrongful convictions. The cases are a lot of times difficult because the defendant, because they're not in front of a judge, they'll just lie to you about everything. You're helping them out, only to find out they're guilty beyond the shadow of a doubt. They're just omitting that portion of it to see what you can come up with that may get them off the hook. they're very difficult to just jump right into and offer assistance. I mean, you have to completely research the case, research the person, and as well as the courthouse to see if your help, even if it is a perfectly innocent person, is going to be effective. You know,
Right.
if the courthouse is corrupt, you could own the key to the city, and it's not going to do you any good because what
Absolutely.
the cop says is gospel, what the judge rules is not even noted as biased or they should have recused themselves. You know, there's points where a judge's refusal actually becomes criminal. You know, if they've got some incentive that they're working after, such as extra federal funding from the federal government for hearing CPS cases, they'll rule take the kids because it's incentivizing. That's criminal.
Exactly. Well, I want to thank you for sharing your experience and everything that you've opened up about. And I think it's really concerning to see this level of corruption happening on such a nationwide level. But I think the more people that are courageous enough to speak out and say their stories and be open and forthcoming, the more likely it is that this stuff will come to an end. So I want to thank you for sharing your story and being brave enough to show your face and speak up and not let them silence you.
Yeah, I'm actually past my investigation with this county, so I was ready to come out and just confront them completely about all the crimes that they've conducted, all the constitutional rights violations they've committed on me. And, you know, because it's an ongoing thing, it's kind of weird. You know, every time uh, my prior case is coming to a point where the statute of limitations is up, they give me another case and kind of like renew my lawsuits.
That's what they
And
do. They keep you there forever.
yeah, what's currently going on with my sheriff's department and the county is the sheriff's department put in for a 14 point something $1 million increase for next year's budget. The commissioner came back with 6.2 million, and the county, I think, countered that with 12. The commissioner came back, but no, it's like I said, 6.2 or something. I didn't read the whole thing. I just looked at numbers, and the sheriff's department is now suing the commissioner because he's not willing to commit what he may or may not know of is an emolument violation. You're paying this sheriff's department to go commit crimes and constitutional rights violations against the public. So I've actually looked into what could be happening with the commissioner, and he's got like mail fraud, and there's a whole list of things that the commissioner can be charged with because the sheriff's department is conducting all these different illicit activities and think that they should just, you know, the cop said what the cop said, and that's gospel. So here's what we go to rule on. Whatever. You know, you sound like a bunch of sixth graders that, you know, have their little conflicts out on the school playground, and everybody's right.
Yeah, it's like the sixth grader bullies from sixth grade are now the sheriffs and the judges, and they now have these positions of power, and they just get off on this power trip, and they just think that they can do whatever they want. But at the end of the day, we have exactly. But you know what? They're not immune to following the Constitution, to following federal law, and not breaking the laws and committing federal crimes. And they can sit there all day and say that they have immunity, but there is plenty of case law out there that shows that deliberately breaking the law and committing crimes on, knowingly committing crimes while on the bench is enough to prosecute them, remove them, indict them. And we've seen it happen. There's been a lot of people, sheriffs, judges, police getting arrested in the last few months. So I think the best thing you can do is continue to be vocal, continue to document. And it seems like you're very detailed with, you're documenting everything in a detailed way, and you're not leaving any stone unturned, which is good. So I would just continue doing what you're doing, and just most of all, just stay strong, because this is like a mental game. It's like a psychological war.
Yeah, and a lot of these cops, they're not even educated enough to be a good liar. One of the arrests that I had with the 7-Eleven thing in particular, the arresting officer took like over 30 minutes to get to my commercial property. And it's because he was at 7-Eleven rehearsing with other cops. And then the police report says that, well, the arresting officer didn't see any video. He didn't get the opportunity to interview anyone because of shift change. And he put the whole police report in his own words. That I walked into 7-Eleven, had a racial meltdown, and just took off. Whatever. And the state attorney reads that he's got 0 to go on, but arrested me. And he admittedly says he didn't see any video and he didn't interview anyone. Here's what I view as happened, and I wasn't there. Terry versus Ohio. I mean, they're indoctrinated with so many different things that are mentally affecting them, and how they conduct their affairs, and how they think that they should proceed with their falling house of cards. Another one that the two arrests ago, I had a situation where I was getting jobs from a Coldwell Banker agent at the time. And she referred me to this woman that I don't know, she seemed she's a single woman. And, throughout talking to her in regards to her job, all the different things that she wanted, it would have been like, I don't know, if I called in 2 laborers, I could have stuck her with a bill for $5,000 in 1 week. But she's a single woman, a little old. So I was like, well, why don't we just do whatever you want, and just call it $20 an hour. That way you get a break on the bill, because it's not something that you desperately need in an immediate amount of time. We could just break this up, you get a break. And I got some little side gig going on. Well, she keeps adding and adding things to the job, and finally she's telling me, well, I'm not paying you till all of this stuff is done. Well, I'm like, okay, well then we're done. Where's my pay? And so she's trying to get out of, well, no, I don't have to pay you, da 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 da. So I had the real estate agent that was a friend of mine drop me off there because I had some stuff that needed a truck. She has a truck, and on the way back, this Faye Stafford CDC nurse that got called back to hand out extra shots August of 2019, right before COVID, that I actually got a very severe flu from being around one of these MMR and flu kids. Not to go on to another subject, but yeah, they called CDC nurses back August of 2019, right before COVID, to hand out extra shots that are known to cause problems. But back to the original thing, so this Faye drops me off, and I have toolboxes only, all the lumber, different stuff that we brought to her house. I don't need a truck, it's a car that we could bring me back in. And she is aggravated because I'm right out telling her, I'm never doing anything for you again. You think that you should pay me $225 for 8 days of contracting work? And I'm doing plumbing, electric, carpentry, da 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 da. So the whole thing didn't end well, and so she slips her purse into my toolbox. And shortly thereafter, the police show up and want to look in my toolbox. Well, why do you want to look in my toolbox? And I know I packed it, so I know that there's nothing in there. So I let her look in my toolbox. I don't have to cooperate. I could have just told her, just listen, just get the hell out of here. I don't want nothing to do with you. I know you're scammers. I know you're criminals. Just buzz off, or before I start hitting you with a little Houston versus Hill, which is, you could swear at them and say whatever you want, as long as you're not, using fighting words. So yeah, they wind up arresting me for a civil matter because a vehicle is an extension of your home, and if you invite me into your home, I could take whatever I want, and it's a civil matter because you invited me. It's not a burglary, it's not a criminal thing, and your car is an extension of your home. So if I did take her purse, which I didn't, otherwise, I mean, do you think I would have let the cop look at my toolbox? you know, I would have got rid of the purse or whatever, um, by the time they showed up. But I went to court on that, and they arrested me for petty theft. I went to court on that, and my opening thing there is I'm done with my investigation. Um, and I had called them out on, look, this is my ninth arrest, zero proof I've ever done anything. And this one in particular, above and beyond the other ones, you don't have a case here. And Judge Menz exchanges some paperwork with the state's attorney. Well, the state's attorney thinks we do because I just called her a domestic terrorist. Because I don't care. If you're a domestic terrorist, well, I'll be the first one to tell you about it. So yeah, she's like all kinds of mad. And I only really did that because I knew if I called them domestic terrorists that they would prove it. And they did by hearing the case. And in a petty theft, you have to have a video or a eyewitness. And then you have to prove intent, not just gossip about it. And I left all that go. They planted a jury foreman on opinion because I've been on their juries, and you go to deliberate and one person automatically is the jury foreman with no discussion or whatever. And one time I did ask the sub-appointed jury foreman, what makes you the jury foreman? I mean, don't you think that we should discuss that? He just completely ignored me. So yeah, they, on opinion, they do plant jury foreman in my county. And they came back with a guilty verdict, even though no videotape, no eyewitness, and the state's attorney didn't prove intent. He just gossiped about it. And that's all supposed to be gospel. And so the judge, because I pointed out a few other things, such as, oh boy, I don't really think that they're qualified for reasons being, and pointed them out a little bit, but she starts talking over me like she doesn't want to hear that because she knows that she's conducting this situation illegally. And the arresting officer, too, is completely acknowledging she's conducting this trial, knowing that it's a civil matter and they're conducting it as a criminal thing, because she just cannot wipe the smile off of her face, grinning from ear to ear, until I had said, well, so did you take any photos there? And she says no. And that was the third time that I called her a liar because I asked her different questions. I was representing myself. I asked her different questions and called her a liar twice without explanation. On the third time, when I asked her if she took any pictures, she's right in the opening of my garage. And I had pointed out, I'm like, you saw that merchandise in my garage. Do you think there's a camera in there? And she went from smiling and grinning the entire time, ear to ear, for one reason, I think, just to aggravate me, like she's having fun with my case and I'm going to jail, my liberty's at risk. And also, she knows that she's hearing a civil matter as a criminal thing. But once I had said, do you think there might be a camera in my garage? She went from grinning from ear to ear to, because she knows she just messed up in open court. She committed perjury, and she's probably been worried about that because she completely shocked herself and couldn't help for several minutes till she left the courtroom being just like, oh my God, I can't believe, not saying that, but just reacting like, I can't believe I just ruined my career, look on her face. And I was just like, I'm done with you. Goodbye. And she left. And even though I called her a liar 3 times, the verdict gets kicked back to the judge, and I had specifically pushed her buttons on purpose. I don't care if you're going to sentence me because I'm going in your jail because I know your diet is toxic. It's causing cystic acne. And I know that there's toilet water coming out of your faucets in the jail cells and out of the shower and out of the sink. And that's toxic because it's recycled toilet water that you're left to bathe and drink. Yum. So I had asked her, hey, are you still poisoning all the inmates with the toilet water coming out of your faucets? And that's what really set her up. Mr. Murphy, I'm going to find you guilty anyhow. Oh, okay. What does anyhow mean? You know, I'm not guilty, but you're going to enter a guilty verdict anyhow. Right? I mean, what does anyhow mean? Why didn't she follow that up with, due to the facts in this evidence that were not proven, maybe, because she didn't have a leg to stand on. But because they heard a civil matter as a criminal thing, I looked into that. The judge, which there's the statute of limitations is still good on this one. She's facing 5 years in prison. Depending on how often she's gotten complaints to the Judicial Qualifications Committee, they may be more lenient on her and just suspend her or remove her judicial qualifications or something, but it's up to 5 years in jail. So she completely risked her career of going to college for 9 years. I looked into her background. And her history of being on the bench. So from there, I can take all of her savings and her equity if she's got any secondary homes, because Florida homestead law, you can't take primary residence, but you can put a lien on that. But you only get paid upon a divorce, death, or the sale of the property. So sometimes that's a waste of time, especially at Florida, because people don't move here to flip houses. Very little people do, but that's not very common. So yeah, she ran a very high risk. The state's attorney ran a very high risk because they're known for telling the police what to lie about. So he's involved in the perjury as well in court, and so is the cop. Because there's 3 things that I can prove beyond the shadow of a doubt that she lied about it, and they didn't prove nothing on me. And I got a conviction anyhow. That's amazing that she was so aggravated and screamed that. She screamed several times, and she ordered the jury out of the room because I was pointing out that this is a domestic terrorist group. The state's attorney introduces the whole situation as, well, have you watched any court shows on TV? The same thing goes on there. Or hear what goes on there. We hear a case, come to a conclusion, da 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 da. So when it was my turn to address the jury, I was like, yeah, this is just like you see on TV, because they're actors also, and they're scripted, and they're don't play it by the book, and they're. I got interrupted at that point, and Judge Menz orders the jury out of the room, screaming because she knows I'm about to tell the jury they're also domestic terrorists, because this is the 9th time that I've been arrested for no reason other than I got divorced in this town and they want to run me through the deadbeat dad garbage when my total child support is $5,000. I could come up with that whole thing at any given moment, except for I'm not going to because my ex-wife owes me $150,000. So how do I owe child support? But that's getting off subject. But so they wound up giving me 60 days in jail, and I went and collected the evidence that I had pointed out that, there's toilet water coming out of your faucets and showers. Your diet causes cystic acne, and they left me walk out of the jail with all of it. So they're not, they're kind of like the lunchroom bully that doesn't realize one day someone's going to come in that's tougher than them. it's not a good idea to be the lunchroom bully. And their opinion is sort of like the lunchroom bully. Everyone's legally illiterate. What about that day when someone comes in that's not and is not working with your system that you've got going on here and just completely collapses your house of cards?
Well,
Um,
hopefully that day will be soon, and hopefully all of this work will pay off in the long run. But again, I want to thank you for your time and taking, the time today to come on the show and share your experience. And I do hope that things can improve for you, and that hopefully maybe others listening to this might feel inspired to fight back and not just allow these people to get away with it. And so it seems like you're doing everything you can to put things on the record, stand on your rights, fight back, and, keep doing what you're doing. And hopefully we'll hear about some arrests soon.
Yeah, I think a good thing for the public to be doing is, take some course in knowing your rights. And then, if you got a day off, go sit in a courtroom. See how many times they violate someone's rights in an open courtroom. And, with that being said, the bailiff is the innocent party, their bystander in the courtroom. Why is he just standing there watching the judge literally commit crimes in open court? Because he's the 18241 242 conspiracy to commit constitutional rights violations or criminal acts as well, and committed. So he's facing a 42 1983 and 1985, and just stands there like, it's never going to happen. I'm just here to take people to jail. And if I see one kid that we want to adopt, we're going to take them to, just for a mere being 20 minutes late for court. So yeah, why isn't the bailiff doing his actual job? Why isn't the bailiff objecting to things? So yeah, it's a good idea to not only know your rights, but go sit in a courtroom and test out your knowledge of knowing your rights. And there's no better place to do that filming the police is a little bit dangerous. If it's nighttime out, they can say, I thought that selfie stick was a gun. I was in fear for my life. So me and several other officers unloaded 10 clips a piece into him, which I've saw done before. I've saw actually some of these auditors videos where some autistic kid, he's not autistic to the extent where he can drive a car, he can conduct his own affairs, but he got stuck in a ditch, and he's out rock collecting, so he's got a hammer and a knife in the car, and the police, I'm in fear for my life. There's a hammer and a knife on the floor. So a cop gets up on the hood of the car and just completely shoots the autistic, I don't know, I would say late teens, early 20s, just unloads a complete clip on him. And there's no real reason for it, except for they could say I was in fear for my life and I got qualified immunity. And I was planning on a vacation. And I was looking for a situation like this. So now I got a month off pending investigation without pay. But when I get back from vacation at perhaps Key West, because I was planning this vacation anyhow, I get a bonus when I get back my paycheck, because they found nothing wrong because they investigated themselves. It's an amazing, it sounds like something that you would hear on a late night movie, that's all just for your entertainment. But I don't know, look, I've watched some of that stuff, and looking at what goes on in real life these days, was that mad scientist with the box spring frame thing that was electrocuting people? Was that a chemotherapy simulation? There's a lot of things that I saw on TV that looked like it could pertain to what's currently going on in real life. Where then it was, made for TV situation, but they're altering all this stuff to made for internet. I don't know. I don't know. Let's maybe leave it there. We'll have to do this again sometime. This was our, first experience at a real chit chat. I think that we've given the viewing community some good opinions and good ideas, and how we can start kicking these houses of cards apart. They always fall. The Roman Empire did it to themselves. Apartheid did it to themselves. All of these different situations that they a lot of times are repeatedly doing, it winds up collapsing. Um, and they know it, but I think that the evilness of their indoctrination uh, has gotten the best of them. That's why they just continue to do it. You know, I mean,
I
what?
well,
I don't know. To
again,
me,
thank you again for everything that you've shared, and absolutely love to again have you on in the future to maybe to give us some updates, and hopefully we can hear about some of these people getting locked up.
right?
But again,
Yeah.
thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. And is it okay if people reach out to you on Facebook if they'd like to talk more?
Let's maybe give that a few days and see how things transpire with comments on here.
Okay, great. Well,
So this
thank
will
you
be on
again.
YouTube.
Yes, so this will be on YouTube, and we're also going to be streaming on Spotify, Apple Music, Audible, Amazon Music, and then I also post clips of it on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. So keep an eye out for that.
Very good.
Yeah,
Mrs. Popular.
it's on all major
Anyway,
platforms, so they could silence me on one platform, but they can't silence me on them all.
right. Yeah, exactly. Um, Anna, like I said to you before, I've watched quite a bit of your stuff, and it's my opinion that you present yourself very well, and the situation that you're up against, I think that you're going to be one of the first that collapses a house of cards. And as soon as that is accomplished and the public sees that, it's not going to be a house of cards anymore. It's going to be the domino effect, especially if people that are viewing and do listen to the part about get to know your rights in a class situation. With there's plenty of them online. Just look around for it. And some of them, it's a one-time payment of $50 or something, $90 I saw, and that's a lifetime membership. So anything that gets updated, you get a notification on. Da da da. And viewing in the courtroom and taking notes. If you notice some crime being committed by a judge, you're not there. You're not allowed to speak. It's not your case. Da da da. Take a note. Figure out the case number. Write down the rights violation. Write down just a short version so that you've got something that you're keeping track of in case, in the event that some judge has scrutiny. Coincidentally, you can anonymously drop your notations with the lawyer that's hearing the case against the judge or the state's attorney or whatever. And then that accelerates the house of cards and the domino effect, because there was someone that actually witnessed, actually took down some court cases or just names and dates and type of case. So there's a couple things that you would want to take a note on. Time, day, and date, location, type of case, type of criminal situation, and any rights violations or something criminal that you noted going on in the courtroom. It's also a good idea to learn some case statutes as well. That way you know that, somebody got arrested for obstructing because they were swearing at the police. Well, Houston versus Hill, you could tell that cop anything that you want. Number one, obstructing, that's a physical thing. Like, say this is evidence, and I put that inside and lock the door. Now I'm obstructing. Standing there talking is not obstructing. I mean, obstructing, the definition of that says it all. There's an obstruction. Words are not an obstruction. You could walk right around it, and that's what the Supreme Court found with that. But yeah, okay, well, I figured I'd just cap it off with that. So if anyone was concerned with, going and sitting in a courtroom, a lot of people sit home and watch court TV and different shows like that, but there's really nothing better than utilizing yourself, as a observer on a real situation, because the things that you see on TV, sometimes it's about a real situation, depending on the type of show. But you, by entering a courtroom, you are moving from fiction to nonfiction.
Right.
And that's what actually grabbed my attention about different things, because of I don't know. I didn't really need to work since my divorce, because I have I don't know. I managed to figure out how to survive without having to work. So I've been a hardcore study in legal things as well as medical. And if I had something to say about the medical thing, it's apartheid. The public is being treated like second class citizens. There's a cure for a lot of things, but you're not getting it.
I think that's a conversation for another day, but we are out of time. So thank you again so much. And I wish you the best, and we'll stay in touch.
Yes. Okay. Very good. Nice
Okay.
to have some time with you and go over our different situations. I think it
You as
went
well.
well, and maybe not get some attention. Who knows?
Absolutely.
But
Yes,
let's
for
do it.
sure.